In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ogle County Peer Support Network. Joining me in the studio today, I've got retired Byron Fire Chief Mike Lewis, and we have a live audience with us here in the studio as well. But we're excited to spend a few minutes here today, Chief. Really just wanted to answer some questions in what we call the FAQ, the frequently asked questions. And throughout the 25 years of chaplaincy, these questions have resurfaced more than once.
I can only imagine after looking through the list.
Yeah, so
because these are questions I know that I've had myself.
Absolutely. And obviously it is such an honor and a privilege to serve in any capacity when it comes to helping people navigate the storms of life. And being the department chaplain here for the Ogle County Sheriff's Office, my priority and first focus is the employees and their families.
Right.
That's important to make a special note of, is that provision has been made to provide this resource for employees, and that would include retirees as well.
Yes.
And family members. So
very important.
Absolutely. But some of these questions, I think we'll just, you can just ask me the questions. I'll answer them, and I even brought a copy of my book here because the book was written to help answer a lot of these questions. So, Chief Lewis, what's the first question that we've got from our listeners?
The first question is from our listening audience: what exactly does a chaplain do?
That question I've been asked so many times, and interesting enough, the very first chapter of the book, the first paragraph, right out of the chute, what is a chaplain? And I'll just read right from the book. It's a question that I've been asked many times throughout my career. To answer it, I'll start by explaining what a chaplain is not. A chaplain is not forced religion or an endorsement of any faith preference. There is a popular misconception that a chaplain is all about religion, subjecting you to lectures on virtue while trying to make converts among the personnel. This is one reason why some departments are hesitant to commit to a chaplaincy program. It's important to understand also that a chaplain is not a violation of your First Amendment rights either. So a chaplain is a coordinator of resources, providing presence and offering support for people of any faith or people of no faith. And I want to add something else, Chief, to this, that what does a chaplain do? What exactly does a chaplain do? It is my responsibility to provide education as well as to what I do. I don't expect people to automatically know what I do, so I have to also provide education and raise awareness. So oftentimes when I'm in the community during my work days, of course I'm never off the clock, but a lot of times I will wear something that identifies me because I'm raising awareness. I'm calling attention to the fact that we have a department chaplain. And there will always be conversations that will follow. It's like, wow, what is a chaplain? And I remember one guy said to me, we were in a store, and I was wearing a shirt, and he said, chaplain, what is that, like religion or something? And so the conversation went from there. So not only providing a supportive presence, but a coordinator of resources. And then I like to say it this way, I'm here to do as much or as little as you need. Pretty simple, huh?
In a complicated way.
in a complicated way.
That means blessed are the flexible because they will not be bent out of shape.
Yeah, I rely on that one quite a bit. I stay flexible, and so to see a chaplain out and about, a chaplain within the department making what I call making rounds or showing up on scene, they're just to show support, just to be a presence, and to coordinate resources.
Well, I think of course we've been involved with over 10 years now with a chaplain group that you oversee. And it's been amazing to me as their first thoughts of what they were supposed to do as chaplains, because as I know in our department, when we started the chaplain program, we really didn't know how to spell chaplain. And it wasn't what we thought it was going to be. We really thought it was you keeping the crying women off of our backs when we went to calls. And it wasn't till probably a few years later that I realized what it really meant for our department, and specifically for what it meant to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the best, and I think this would be a good time to insert something here. The best case scenario, and we've learned over the years that we've been doing this, we have learned what works well, what doesn't work so well. But best case scenario is, in our case, not only did we meet through the chaplaincy, me being the department chaplain for you, but I also became your pastor.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the best case scenario to fully realize the resource that a chaplain can bring.
And again, that was probably a few years later after. I mean, you started in 2000. I don't think it was until 2005, maybe 2004, that a good friend of mine told me, because he realized that I was struggling with everything, mostly with what was going on at work, but it had dovetailed into home life as well, to parts of my career that I'm not too proud of, actually. And so he told me, you need to go to that church and talk to you. And honestly, at that point, I had been on calls where you had showed up for us as a chaplain, but I'd really never, ever talked to you. And because I told him, I was thinking about going to this other church, and he said, hey, because he's spoken to my life before, and he said, you need to go here, but take a rope with you, tie yourself into the seat because you're going to need to. And he weren't wrong.
He weren't wrong.
He weren't wrong. And consequently, through the years, I attribute my sitting here yet today instead of being in the dirt by that move that I made, because it changed everything for me.
Well, it changed everything for me too, and I've learned so much through our relationship. Now, saying this, we're not telling you that you have to come to my church and I have to be your pastor. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
However, for a person such as yourself, a person of faith, obviously a person of Christian faith, and you weren't going anywhere, you had no church connection or affiliation per se, it worked. This was the best case scenario, and it has worked out very well.
Right.
But to be the department chaplain, obviously is very, very important for people to know that I don't force my religious beliefs on you.
And that might be a good place to put the second question in place. And I'm not religious. How can you help me? And I know that that's been asked of you several times, and I've heard that said amongst the troops before. It said hey, and sometimes they incorrectly label themselves as atheists or agnostics.
Right.
When in fact they do believe in a higher power, they just need to be pointed to what that higher power is.
Exactly.
But that said, what if I'm not religious?
Yeah,
what can you do for me?
And I can recall the times that this was presented to me, and it's an honest question. Hey, I'm not religious. How do you help me? And I'd say it this way: all people of faith and people of no faith, need practical support. All people of faith and people of no faith, will benefit from a compassionate presence on scene. And I remember on more than one occasion, it was presented to me this way: well, I don't believe like you do, so I don't need you coming to help me. So, we'll see, I coordinate resources, so I will find the person that you need to come support you. I will make the phone calls. If I have to, I will go find your minister of choosing, your of whatever your faith persuasion is. And see, that there's a big misconception that, I'm not going to call you, I'm not religious, or I'm not of your flavor or your brand of Christianity. But but my job is to coordinate resources to support you, to help you. And it's as much or as little as you need, and people need to I think people need to understand that. It's kind of funny to say this, but I'm thinking of so many different situations in 25 years, and I showed up on the one particular call, and I actually got the cigarettes for the person so that they could start smoking to help calm them down. And I just remember one of the first responders on scene just looked at me like, wait a minute, you're a pastor and you're giving them cigarettes? And I said, this is probably the first and only time that you see a chaplain doing this, but it's what they needed at the moment to help them. And, I mean, whether it's a glass of water, whether it's a cigarette, I mean, certainly not going to pass out alcohol, but you'd be surprised. I mean, my job is to pay attention and try to determine what's going to help you. What do you need from me right now? Sometimes just to be there and not say a whole lot. So whether you are, quote unquote, religious or not, whether you have a particular faith persuasion or you don't, you too can benefit from practical support. Practical support. That includes just about anything. Providing transportation and making phone calls is a big thing. When you're in a traumatic incident or an event and something has happened and you're not able to function, well, guess what? I will discern that, and I can make phone calls for you. I will call family members. I will call whoever you need me to, and I will stay with you through the whole process. Times when I've taken people to the hospital and stayed with them for hours. Of course, I'm not always going to be available to do that, but the times that I am, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've witnessed myself with it. When people are involved in a traumatic event, whether it be a car crash or a loved one has just been taken to the hospital, it jolts them into a very chaotic, what would you call it, situation. They don't know what to do. They're grasping. They've never been here before, and they're looking. And if somebody will calmly guide them, it calms them down every time. It's amazing to watch from a distance to see how that works for people. And I'll tell you what, for the first responder community, that is part of what we can do for people.
Well, your system's on overload, right? So your system's on overload. Something's going to short circuit. And sometimes people don't understand why. People will start to shake. The mouth instantly goes dry. You can't function. Any number of things can happen. I mean, in 25 years of doing this, people have collapsed in my arms. People have gotten completely out of control, physically violent. Language, abusive language, any number of things can happen. You just don't know. And to have this presence there, a calming presence, a controlling presence, is so vital and so important. And again, I mean, obviously we're all different, but we're all the same.
Yeah.
And we all need and can use compassion, and we all need and can use practical support, and that's what a chaplain provides. So,
and I think before we get too far along the line with this third one, I think is big, because I think that's a misconception that not only do the first responders have, but their organizations, before they would invoke a chaplain program, is, are you going to preach to me?
That is a common one, very common. And the long and short of it is this. Yeah, I'm going to preach to you if you ask me to. Otherwise, no, I'm not. But if you need me to and want me to, absolutely. And I've been asked to. I've been asked to pray. I've been asked to quote a Bible passage. I've been asked to give some inspiring or encouraging or word of exhortment or something. But by and large, Absolutely not. The chaplain is not there to preach at you or preach to you. The chaplain is not there to lecture you on virtuous living and morals. You know, it's
Unless you ask.
well, and if you ask me, absolutely, because first and foremost, I am a minister of the gospel. I have a paying job at my church, the solo pastor at our church, and I have a responsibility to respond. If you need me to or want me to, yes, I will. But now remember, you asked, so here it goes. And usually I'll preface it by saying that. Now remember, you asked, so here goes. And you want me to comment on this or that. You want me to say this or that. But no, a chaplain is not there to preach at you or preach to you. That any chaplain that does that doesn't understand his or her role.
That being said, though, I believe in the course of our work with being able to teach at several different firefighter training functions. We've asked the question already going around the room: what is your religious preference, or what is your higher power, or do you have one? And overwhelmingly, I would say over 80% for sure, and probably 90% of them have some sense that there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it varies, of course, which it does with all Christians. However, if that is your go-to, or that you believe in that manner, what you can do as a chaplain in presenting the gospel can be very edifying, can be very encouraging, can be just exactly what the first responder needs at that particular time. And I'm speaking mostly from the idea of serving first responders. So if you are a Christian first responder, or believe that there is a higher power, you're a great person to be able to gently brought into that, and given some guidelines of where you can start in to engage further or to learn more. I've seen you do it before. I mean, you did it to me. You never beat me over the head with the Bible, even before I started going to the church that you were preaching at. And I think that's what really drew me to you. You were real. You didn't force anything on me. You never told me I should go to your church. It was another guy that said, hey, you really need to go to that guy's church. So I think that's important for the first responder to realize that if you have a leaning in that direction, or if you have questions, you're a great resource for that, to gently and really lovingly guide a person into the right direction.
Well, those are some very kind words, and encouraging to me. And obviously it means a lot coming from someone that I do trust. We've been through a lot together, and we've
Have
seen
we?
a lot. Yeah, we first responders are first and foremost husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. I mean, you came from somewhere. You didn't just come right out of this mold and separate it from real life. You started off as a real person. You're still a real person, but not often viewed that way. But you have your own emotions. You have your own convictions. You have your own thoughts. And sometimes it's as simple as encouraging you or creating that safe space where we can be real with one another.
Yeah.
I love it when first responders are real with me. I love it when they'll just take the plunge with me and say, listen, just ask me anything. We can talk about anything, including, and this has happened multiple times, do you think they're in heaven, or did they go right to hell? Now, that's a real question, referring to someone who was killed or took their own life. Unfortunately, there are a fair amount of first responders who are dying by suicide, and we can talk a little bit more about that, and I think we probably should, because really, maybe this is a good time to reiterate the story. It was a debriefing that I was called to conduct with an entire department, and they had just lost one of their members to suicide. And on the way there, I traveled with two of the administrators and walked into this huge, like a training room, a large facility, large training room, full. Every seat was full. And they were just devastated. I can just remember the heaviness in that room. And they were just devastated. And it's interesting because they wanted me to lead this debriefing over this traumatic incident. And something in me, I stumbled, I fumbled, and I thought, what is wrong with me? I know what I'm supposed to do here. I can't do it. And finally, it came to me what I was supposed to do. And in this large audience, in this training room, I said, I know what somebody's thinking. You're thinking, did my friend go to hell because they took their own life? And it was silent. And then you heard it. One person broke down and wept. And I thought, thank you, God. So I went over to the individual, and I stood there, put my hand on his back and his shoulders, and just kind of rubbed his shoulders. And we went from there. We just went into this debriefing and this was a real question for this person. No doubt more than one person thought that
Yes.
day.
Yes.
Because inevitably we do think these thoughts, and I was able to address that and go from there. I'd never had an experience quite like it and haven't had one since, but I just knew that there was, like you say, a higher power that was leading me in that direction. And as soon as that first responder broke down and began to weep, I thought, wow, this is what it's all about.
It's breakthrough.
Breakthrough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so sometimes you have to, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but sometimes you have to dispense with the formality and just go with what your feeling led to do at that moment. It's like, I can't tell you why, but I just could not get the words out. I couldn't go through it. I couldn't ask the questions, and I'm like, what is going on here? And that's when I knew what to do next.
Yeah. Debriefings, I've attended a few over my years, and I wasn't at that one. I wish I would have been, actually, because I think it's the first true real one that I've heard about. Most of the time I've walked away in worse shape than what I went in with.
Yeah.
Because they don't really hit the true points. I mean, I know critical incident stress management debriefing has its own set of protocols, and here's step one, here's step two. But a person can't really put themselves in that until that's happened to you. And it is a devastating thing to a department. You've witnessed it, and I can't imagine it. I've been very fortunate through my career that I didn't have to. But when you have even a person who gets hurt in an incident, it's very devastating to you and to your department. And you need somebody that's real, that's willing to take those risks of following that unction.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way I look at it is somebody who's real, somebody who's willing to take the risks. It means you may be criticized, you may be misunderstood, but I think that you, as a first responder, deserve my very best. You deserve for me to be real and to be honest with you. I'm not going to shove religion down your throat. I'm not going to preach at you unless you ask me to. I'm not going to quote Bible passages unless you ask me to. I'm there to support you. I'm there to be a supportive, compassionate presence for you, and just to be real. And, I've been a part of line of duty death for law enforcement and for fire. I've been a part of fire and law enforcement suicide, and none of it's pleasant or easy. And the last thing in the world I want to do is just be pat, rote, routine. That's the last thing I want. And I'll be honest with you. I decided a long time ago that I was not going to go up to people and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." I just can't do that anymore. I've been with people through the 25 years I've been doing this, more than 25 years, where it's so empty. People don't know what else to say. "I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss." What are you sorry for? I'm the one who lost somebody,
Yeah.
and any number of emotions are conjured up. And I thought, I'm just going to go with my heart and walk into a situation. And here's what I found myself saying: I am so sorry that I have to meet you like this. I wish that there were another way. I wish I didn't have to meet you like this. Now, whether or not that means anything to them, it helps me because I don't want to just be like everybody else. "I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss."
Well, those words become like, "How are you today?"
Exactly.
Same thing. And
exactly.
and we just, it goes in and out.
Yeah.
There's no feelings with it. There's no compassion with that.
Yeah.
I've been with you on several calls where people have passed away, and you're having to tell the family or whatever, and I just love watching you because it's never the same.
Yeah. It's not, that's exactly right. Everything has to be, in my mind, custom fit for the circumstance, for the individual, for the family. And that's one thing I work very hard at, is keeping a sensitive, open heart, staying touchable, but staying teachable and pliable, if you will, and not going into a situation with step 1, step 2, step 3, like you're reading a script.
Yeah.
I can't stand when that happens, and I won't do it to people. And Chief, I always tell myself, if it were me that was deceased, if I had perished, and someone were coming to my home, how would I want them to treat my family? That's the way I'm going to treat you and your family. And I'm very, very adamant about this. I know we're taking the long way around, but I think it's good for people to hear this perspective. And being the department chaplain for our sheriff's office, I think people need to understand my mindset. I think they need to hear from me. This is my perspective. This is the way I view life. This is my worldview, is that you deserve for me to be real.
Yeah.
And I won't give you anything less.
Yeah. And I think that was our misconception when we started the chaplain program in our fire department. Like I said, it was to keep the crying women off our back. I say that in jest, but honestly, that's what we were looking at, is that somebody could come in there and take the family in the other room while we're doing CPR on their loved one and be able to explain, or if we're out at a fire or an accident, be able to explain to other victims, whatever the case might be. But we never looked at it that was for us. And I like how this has evolved. And I think within that book, that's what you see, is that, whoops.
Yeah.
Hold on. Forgot to silence the old telly. All right.
Talk about keeping it real, man. When the alarm goes off.
But let's see if I can get back in the groove here. But it took me a while to figure out, and I'll be honest with you, I was a hard case to figure out that you were there for us, the first responders. And if we utilized that, it made things go a whole lot better. A
chief that we both know and respect once said, he said, you know what you're like, you as the chaplain, you're like a lightning rod. You help absorb the negative energy. And I like that. I like that because when you're dealing with something very traumatic and very difficult, you need one another. I'm talking about first responders. I'm talking about getting all of your resources together, and don't do this alone. And dear Lord, whatever you do, don't make a death notification alone. That is a no-no. You don't need further trauma,
Right.
Having to deliver this horrific news to a family, but to be there to help absorb the negative energy, and it will diffuse much better that way. We draw strength one from another.
Well, I think that's an important thing to realize, that that's actually helping the first responder.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, it's great for the family, and that is a very traumatic time for you
Yeah,
as the deliverer, as well as if it is for the family.
absolutely.
And but for the first responder, having to go there along with whether they be a deputy or coroner or whatever, it's great to have that chaplain there to help with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, we've been unfortunately have had to do a number of these, and that's one thing I have to say to all of our employees, those who are tasked with that duty of doing a death notification. Do not do it alone. You mustn't do it alone. It's so humbling to me too that you are you are about to enter into this family's world, and what you say and do next will stay with them forever and ever. They will never forget that moment. It is so humbling. And, we need each other to keep each other real as well. Don't go in there robotic,
No,
a cold, callous robot, if you will.
pull out your notepad to see
Exactly.
how you're supposed to do this. Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, I've had people collapse in my arms. I've watched the color drain, literally people turning white before my eyes. And at that moment, of course, there's a lot of politics involved in everything. We know that.
Right.
But at that moment, I throw all that out the window and I go and embrace these people and I hold on to them because that's what they need. Well, you can't do that. You can't touch them. Well, watch me. Watch me not touch them. Because this is what these people need right now is someone to hold them.
And it may sound a little funny, but yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. They'll never forget that, and that part of humanity that you can impart to them, that somebody cares.
Mm-hmm.
That's undescribable.
Absolutely. Well, we're here to serve, aren't we? I mean, isn't that isn't that our highest call is to serve one another? And I've often said it this way. Throughout all of eternity, if you believe in that, if you believe in that kind of thing, if you believe that there is a heaven, throughout all of eternity, what will we be doing for each other? Serving one another. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
It's not about you anymore. It's about, hey, how do I serve you? And I say it this way. It's in the scripture says it's more blessed to give than to receive. I believe that. I live by that.
Yeah.
I've put this into practice in my own life. It's a very selfish, self-centered world when people are only in it for what they can get. What can you do for me? How do you benefit me? How is this going to help me and my agenda? And, through the years, I've had many people come to me and want to be a part of the chaplaincy because they see what I do. They see it working. And it's like, hey, man, I want to be a part of this. And it's like, some of those people, you can read right through them and you say, heck no, I don't want to be anywhere near you. I won't work with just any other chaplains. I just won't do it. Some of these guys and gals, why they're doing it, I'll never know. But I always say all chaplains are not created equal, any more than all first responders are.
Well, I think a lot of departments don't understand what a chaplain really is. And I think that's where this book could be a great resource for
Absolutely.
any organization that is even
Yeah.
remotely considering having a chaplain. And what I love what they've done here, they have a chaplain-led peer support team.
Yeah.
To me, that's like perfect.
Yeah, that's amazing because I think in the class that I had attended recently, I say recently, the most recent one, a 4-day peer support leader class, the instructors are retired law enforcement, and they said, the fire service is ahead of us on that peer support curve. We're playing catch up in many respects, but there's good ways to go about this. There are better ways to go about it, and then there are not such good ways to go about this. And so what they're learning is that, well, it's good to have a chaplain be a part of the team, but it's even better to have your department chaplain lead the team.
Well, I think that's what the instructors learned from you.
Exactly.
Because you made you made an inroad with them because you've had constant communication with them since, and
Yeah.
that's awesome to see that they recognize the value of putting it together like that. And I agree with you. Not all chaplains are created equal. I've been on calls with other chaplains, and I was appalled as to how the people were treated. And it's like, wow, I'm very blessed to have served with and under you. And I'm glad for that. I'm very glad for that.
Well, thank you, Chief. It's been a ride. I'll tell you that. It's been a heck of a ride so far. You know, and a lot of these questions and a lot of these things, Chief, you know, I want to refer to this book here. And of course, I know this is just a very thin, easy-to-read book that I wrote to answer questions and to help provide some insight and some guidance. And really, for administrators who aren't sure what to do, how do we start a chaplain program? What do we do? How do we find a chaplain?
What can it do?
Yeah, exactly. These questions are answered in this book. Now, for my grandson to read through this book twice, quick like. In fact, most adults have said to me, it only takes about an hour of your time to sit down and read, and they have all said the same thing to me. Once I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. It has been really a great blessing to be able to do this, to help provide the education and to raise awareness. And the book is available on Amazon. It's only $7.99 on Amazon to ease their pain and suffering. But for our employees here and your families, if you just send me an email, the county email here, Ogle County, just send me an email and tell me, hey, can you give me a book? Now, I will tell you this. If you want me to mail it to you, it's almost the same amount to mail it as it is to purchase it. So I would much rather leave it here at Post 1, our recording studio right here. Post 1 Recording Studios for the Ogle County Sheriff. I can stick it in a mailbox. You know, I could just put it somewhere if you want a copy of it. But we really want help getting the word out that this is a great resource to help people, because I feel like part of my responsibility is to be an advocate for the chaplaincy in coming alongside first responders and their families to help them. So it's a great resource. We'd love to have you read it and to help promote it. And just let me know if you want a copy. Or you can always go to Amazon, $7.99, and this copy can be yours. Chief, I think you've read it a time or two.
Yeah.
I've gotten nothing but good feedback. And if anybody has anything negative to say, I'm going to forward it to you. Okay. And you can deal with it. So frequently asked questions, our FAQ.
There we go.
This has been a representative of these questions that have actual questions through the years, and no doubt I'm going to get these questions again and again. So hopefully this helps. This has just been just a great privilege, and can't wait to see where all this goes. And we are going to be looking to get some family training and get some couples together and just talk back and forth about stuff that's pertinent and relevant. So just stay tuned and look forward to our next one. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.
Dispatch from Route 7 Command.
Man, go ahead.
Need a chaplain at this location?
10-4. Attention 3392. 3392, you're needed at the 8000 block of Route 7, multiple vehicle accident. Please acknowledge.
3392 is en route, 8000 block, Route 7.
10-4.
In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.